Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Clean Technology Track. My name is Mike Matsuo. I am the Vice President of Community Business and Investment with Vancity. Vancity is a proud sponsor of the BCTECH Summit for the second year in a row, and it's my pleasure to be your host today for the Clean Tech session. First, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathering in unceded territory of the Coast Salish, represented today by the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. They've been custodians of this land for thousands of years, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders both past and present. I want to tell you a bit about Vancity. I've worked at Vancity for the last 25 years, so Vancity is a values-based financial cooperative that exists for the well-being of our more than 500,000 BC-based members. Our sustainable banking model is grounded in the local economy. We invest in local communities where people earn and spend money, grow successful businesses, and create goods and services. We support the rapidly growing tech sector because it has several positive impacts for BC, both direct and indirect. As BC's economy transitions, Vancity is playing a key role in enabling a shift away from resource extraction and unaligned activities to a more diverse, green, and sustainable economy. Vancity supports clean tech because investing in clean technology and renewable energy contributes to environmental sustainability, which is one of our core principles, and it's necessary to mitigate the effects of climate change. And ultimately, we want to support this sector to thrive and prosper so that the businesses it produces will be financially sustainable and help increase impact in the communities where we all live and work. So I hope you've enjoyed the BC Tech Summit so far. As you all know, there's been lots to see and lots going on, and you'll be able to watch video sessions that you missed in the BC Tech Summit video online library. Conference organizers will tell you about where to find these videos after the summit is over. This afternoon, we have a superb lineup of speakers for you. You're going to learn more about exciting new clean technologies and companies with game-changing solutions right here in BC. The need is urgent, the potential is huge, and it's an exciting time for all of us. Please ensure you check in to the session on the BC Tech Summit mobile app. It'll help us track our audiences and our sessions, and some of our presenters may ask you to provide feedback or ask questions through this app. We'll be here till about 3:30 this afternoon, and then we'll head over to the conference closing session, followed by the evening networking reception. So there's still lots happening today at the BC Tech Summit. I would now like to introduce Ian McKay, CEO of the Vancouver Economic Commission. The VEC is the city's economic developmental agency and leading organization in Vancouver with a mandate to both attract investment to our city and help our local companies expand and grow their businesses. The VEC focuses its efforts on the knowledge-based industries driving much of the economic growth worldwide, those being technology and clean technology. To that regard, they work very closely with each of the companies you'll see here today and many others being represented in the Clean Tech Showcase. Ian, do you want to come to the stage?
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Mike, for the introduction. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of Vancouver Economic Commission, and I have the honor today of introducing and welcoming the first speaker in the series, Deb Frodl, the Executive Director of GE's Ecomagination. But first, a little commercial break about VEC and who we are and what we do. As the Economic Development Agency for Vancouver, my team and I work tirelessly every day to position Vancouver as a globally recognized leader in creative, innovative, and sustainable business. And I'm proud to report that once again this year, because it's a bit of a trend, Vancouver leads the country in economic growth on a number of metrics. In 2016, with 4.1% GDP growth, with 94,000 new jobs created, more than any other city in Canada, and with being recognized by the Conference Board of Canada as having the most diversified economy in the country. But there's more. Just yesterday, startup Genome, the widely recognized leader in recognized in startup ecosystems around the globe, has validated Vancouver as the #1 technology city in the country and the #15 technology center in all of the world, and they rank 222 cities. So we are just delighted with that recognition, and we are, if you're in the community and you work in technology, in any stream of technology, as an entrepreneur, an investor, a business leader, take a bow and take credit for this extraordinary recognition. If you're from away and you're visiting Vancouver, look no further if you're looking for a spot to deploy capital, start a business, start your career, or build a business. Also yesterday, KPMG announced their update of their assessment of Vancouver's clean tech sector. And again, some extraordinary growth numbers. Since their last update in 2006, the clean tech sector in Vancouver has grown the number of companies by 35%, the average wage paid in the sector by 25%, and the number of equity raised also up 25%. So all across the board, the clean tech sector is driving so much of our city's economy. Clean tech, of course, is such a big part of our story. In Vancouver, we have 30% of Canada's clean tech companies, just under 30% of the employees who work in clean technology, and about 28% of all venture capital raised in Canada is deployed in Vancouver. And the reason I'm so delighted to have the opportunity to introduce Deb Frodl is that GE's Ecomagination platforms aligns so beautifully with the emergence of the clean tech sector in our city. The notion that there is a binary or opposing relationship between technology sectors and the resource economy is, of course, an old, tired narrative. Our clean tech cluster in Vancouver exists precisely because the resource-based companies here have for decades been investing in research, in startups, and the commercialization of clean, sustainable solutions for the extraction, processing, and transportation of the precious resources we have in our province. And at GE, through Ecomagination, a fundamental part of the company's growth strategy is to enhance the resource industry productivity and reduce environmental impact through commercial innovation. It is a complementary and symbiotic relationship, not a binary and opposing relationship. Deb Frodl is a graduate of Minnesota State University and holds an MBA from University of St. Thomas. Over a 27-year career at GE, Deb has had leadership roles with GE Public Finance, GE Capital, and GE Fleet Services. She serves on the board of the Advanced Energy Economy, the Department of Energy's Clean Energy Panel, and was the 2014 Women's Council on Energy and Environment Woman of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Vancouver welcome to the Executive Director of GE's Ecomagination, Deb Frodl.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is so wonderful to be here in beautiful Vancouver. What a great view. My first time at the BC Tech Summit, so I'm delighted to be here. I have to begin by congratulating the government of British Columbia and the BC Innovation Council. This is just such an impressive event. And I have to comment also, Ian just shared some great stats. The minister this morning also shared 273 clean tech companies in the greater Vancouver area. 14,000 are employed, an average salary of $84,000. What great jobs, and you are totally leading the way. It is so impressive. Very, very delighted to be here. So thank you for inviting me to speak about GE's Ecomagination strategy and how we are an accelerator of clean energy solutions. I'm going to share with you today a bit about our journey in Ecomagination, as well as some innovation insights, and comment a little bit on the current landscape of both the market and political landscape. So let me just begin with some background for those of you that may not know about Ecomagination. It is an incredible success story for GE. The strategy has been in place now for 12 years, and it is a story of bold vision relentless investment in innovation and focus. And when we started the strategy back in 2005, GE was pioneering at that time. So we made big, bold commitments. We wanted to accelerate revenue from Ecomagination solutions. We wanted to invest heavily in clean technologies, and we were going to reduce GE's environmental footprint. So roll forward, how are we doing in this a little bit over a decade already? We have invested over $20 billion in Ecomagination solutions. That's returned GE over $270 billion of revenue. A real proof point that our customers value these solutions in their operations today. We have over 74 Ecomagination solutions in the portfolio. They span GE's portfolio. And we have a very robust process around that qualification where a third party comes in and audits those solutions. After this decade, Ecomagination, we are really helping our customers to transform industries, driving much greater efficiency, economics, and environmental performance. So what guides our strategy? It's really these 4 megatrends that we watch. It helps us with our strategy, how we're going to innovate, how we're going to invest in the R&D. And let me just start with digital. Digital is accelerating everything. The industrial internet, the Internet of Things, large and small connected devices. There'll be 50 billion connected devices by 2020. The industrial internet and the Internet of Things is really changing global industry. Digital is accelerating that. How we look at it at GE and what we're most interested is how digital can actually improve efficiency in our customers' operations and reduce environmental impact. And we call this digital efficiency. And because it's still the early days, we've done a hypothetical scenario where digital solutions, just a handful of them that are across key industries at scale, what that means. It could mean over if you just take a couple of industries like power, aviation, and lighting, you could save over $80 billion in cost savings just from fuel reductions and reduce emissions by over 800 million tons of carbon annually. Digitization is going to change global industry like your smartphone has changed your personal life. Now, the energy landscape, let's just move to fossil fuels here. The energy landscape has been a bit surprising. We have seen now a fossil fuel, we're in an era of abundance. We have seen US shale gas increase by 10x. You've seen a barrel of oil decrease by over 50%. And we are living in a time of plentiful fossil fuels at very low cost. And so we are very focused on making fossil fuels, both the production side and the consumption side, as clean and as efficient as we possibly can with minimal environmental impact. And we also, we're facing into more and more acceleration of climate change today. Climate change, the science is there, it's proven, it's from human activity, and now climate change is also impacting humankind. And one of the key areas that's impacting is energy-related emissions. That's why we are so focused on making fossil fuels as efficient and clean as possible, but also how do we make renewables as productive as possible and work on energy efficiency so just overall energy is down for businesses and industry. So in the backdrop of digital, in the backdrop of an era of fossil fuels, climate change accelerating, we have also seen unprecedented investment and innovation in clean technology. In the last decade, solar PV has come down by 75%. You've seen wind capacity grow by 10x. Today, over 50% of all new electricity additions are with renewable technology. That number is going to grow to 66% by 2020. Also in 2020, you will see global energy produced over 25% from renewables. So how do we decide to invest in our innovation strategy and our R&D? We are very fortunate at GE. We have 8 global research centers, 3,000 high-end scientists that are working on innovation and technology breakthroughs for GE and Ecomagination every single day. We think of innovation really on a spectrum, from new generation or next generation to transformational innovation. But in Ecomagination, we are always focused, laser focused on pushing the boundaries of efficiency and emissions reductions. So let me just give you some examples of some of the technologies that are on this slide. So the 9HA gas turbine is world class. Nobody has this, it's 62% efficient. Our scientists actually took technology from another industry. That's the beauty of, at GE, we can pull technology from other industries. Our scientists pulled supersonic jet engine technology and advanced technology to create the 9HA. Why? Because now the 9HA can go from 0 to full ramp in less than 30 minutes. That helps our utility customers be able to react and respond to a dynamic grid and really take on variable sources like wind and solar. Second, digital is actually helping us optimize both assets and operations. Digital wind farm is a combination of hardware and software together. GE's wind turbines, along with a suite of applications that is built on our Predix platform, our industrial internet operating system. So now we can optimize the wind farm, and over the life, we can get 20% more productivity out of that wind farm. So digital is really transforming what we can do on the renewable front. And then finally, new materials. Our scientists have now identified a new material that is changing the solar industry, a game changer. The material is called silicon carbide. It's a synthetic crystalline compound of silicon and carbon, and it was originally discovered by our scientists as they were looking to make artificial diamonds. And so some of the properties remain the same. Very heat resistant and very strong material that we now can put in our utility scale solar inverter. What does that mean? It means we've redesigned the inverter. We have made it now 40% smaller because you no longer need a cooling unit. Now the inverter can be air cooled because of this material. And we got 1% more efficiency, so it's now 99% efficient. So ultra efficiency in fossil fuels, digital is driving greater productivity out of renewables, and new types of materials are allowing us to design and drive more efficiency through our technologies. So it's always fun to talk about some local stories. And so I just wanted to share some great Ecomagination solutions that have been put in place with some of our customers here in Canada. With the intention, our customers were always helping them to reduce their costs, improve productivity, while improving their environmental performance. So we worked with Pepsi in Ontario. Pepsi was having a challenge of, spikes in unpredictable energy costs. This was driving a much bigger environmental footprint for them as well because there was so much energy consumption. So we worked with them to deploy an Ecomagination solution, our gas engine, our Jenbacher gas engine. We enabled it with some of their equipment to create a combined heat and power solution, and it's working terrifically. Now Pepsi has on-site power that creates resiliency for them, but it also has reduced cost, reduced their energy consumption because of the cogeneration, and it's also reduced their greenhouse gas emissions by 3,000 metric tons annually of CO2. What this has done for Pepsi is it's now the consumer products that they're making, it is 50% less energy used to make those products. This has been such a great business case for Pepsi. Here in Ontario, they're looking to scale it around the world. And then real quickly, here in BC, last month we launched McKay Farms, the largest wind farm here in Western Canada. Very exciting, 61 wind turbines that power about 180 megawatts of power. It's about 54,000 homes annually. We worked with Patterson Energy on the project, and we also used some digital tools to help us. We really wanted to make sure we placed the turbines in the optimal location, so we used geography and weather data in order to do so. And the good news is when you look at a wind farm of this size and you compare it to a coal-fired power plant, right? We're displacing 627,000 tons of CO2. It's like 123,000 cars off the road. So some really great stories just here locally in Canada that are really helping the businesses here, our customers. Oops, there we go. So I shared with you a couple of these stories. I also want to share with you that, you know, we can't do this alone. Innovation, collaboration, in order for us to continue to accelerate progress, make a bigger impact, really requires collaboration. And in Ecomagination, we think of collaboration 4 different ways. Commercial collaborations, where we're working with other industry leaders really to solve some big challenges together, where you're making, you know, bringing together complementary capabilities from 2 companies to develop new technology solutions or new business models together, and then you are able to scale and deploy globally. We're working with Intel, Walmart, Total, Statoil, and others on big projects around energy and water. We also, over the last 7 years, we've done about 10 open innovation challenges that have been just terrific. There is no better way to tap into the global talent in the world to solve some energy, water, emissions challenges together. We've done this now, tapping into engineers, inventors, academics to really help us solve these challenges. And we did a challenge not that long ago in Alberta with the Canadian oil sands because we wanted to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through some of their extraction processes. And we did an open innovation challenges, and the 3 finalists didn't even come from Canada. They've never even stepped foot in Canada, but they were able to bring some really new technology ideas to help us solve quickly. And the beautiful thing, honestly, about open innovation challenges is you can go out, ask for help on designs, the technology itself, a new business model, and it allows us to move forward, accelerate more quickly, but let our scientists, our high-end scientists, work on the really tough things as well. So it's a very complementary, innovative strategy. We also are doing hackathons. We did our first one last year with California State University. We had the students now learn how to build apps on our Predix platform. They were given the challenge to reduce water and energy on their campuses, and now we have some future developers at California State University that can help us with future challenges. And then finally, we have our GE Energy Ventures team. They want to be more than just a financer. They are a partner of choice. We are investing in Series B type companies. We are looking for technologies that are complementary to the GE portfolio. We have a toolkit of GE to bring to these companies. Could be licensing technologies, just the ability to scale, and really partner. We have some great companies in the portfolio today: Sungevity, STEM, Embala, many others. So innovation and collaboration are really the way of the future. So I thought I would just take a minute and talk about the current landscape that we are all living in, and how it impacts or aligns to the Ecomagination strategy. And as I think about this, I believe Ecomagination strategies have never been more important today. You just look at the left-hand side of this chart and the stark facts that we are all facing into. The World Health Organization recently put out a report that over 92% of the world's population is breathing some level of unsafe air today. You are seeing the planet warm the last 16 years. Some of the hottest temperatures on record. Last week we heard about Antarctica hitting a high mark as well. And the International Energy Agency, we're seeing 30% growth in energy by 2040 as well. Innovation is absolutely an imperative for us to solve some of these tough challenges. We're also seeing public sentiment very high on clean technology today. In the US, the Pew Research did a survey at the end of January that they launched. 65% of Americans want advanced technologies versus fossil fuels. Same here in Canada. Nanos did a survey. 77% of Canadians support or somewhat support following through and executing on the international climate agreements that have been set out. So you've got the growing needs, you've got public support in a very big way. And now, when you look at the political environment, at least I'm from the US, at least in the US, there's a bit of discourse and a little bit of conversation happening on the energy and climate side. And we look at this as it's a bit irrelevant. We believe climate science is real. It is not a debate. It is all about action. The market has responded to clean technology solutions. Business has been investing and leading, and we are in the process of the energy transition today. And just a couple of facts for everybody. You know, the clean tech boom, and however you want to say it, has some tremendous momentum. It is creating jobs. The market has responded. The technology is getting better. It is cost competitive today. You look at jobs in the United States, the renewable jobs are outpacing the declines in coal and oil. One of the fastest growing jobs in the United States right now are wind maintenance technicians. And globally, renewables employs about 8 million people, and that's growing at 5% annually. The investment in clean tech and renewables has doubled in the last decade. Even though renewables have come down, it's been $288 billion in 2016. So significant investment levels. And then I spoke a little bit, but the technology cost curves have come down substantially. The technology has gotten better. Just in the last 4 years, wind and solar has seen a decline of 30%. And that is all good news because that means less reliance on government subsidies. And what we're working on in Ecomagination as well, we say 3-cent wind, 3 cents a kilowatt hour, because that's the magic number that you no longer need subsidies. So I think the market definitely has responded. We are clearly in an energy transition. So just in closing, Ecomagination foundationally is about innovation. We're very proud of the 74 products and solutions that we have today, the investment of $20 billion that we've made. The market has responded with the $270 billion of revenues. You know, the technology solutions are cost competitive, they're mainstream today. We only see this accelerating. And we hear from governments, customers, people, they want and need these solutions. So I'm so delighted. Again, thank you for letting me be here, share the story a little bit. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have for me.
We've got some time for Q&A right now, but I asked, there's only one mic, so if you have a question, please raise your hand high so we can see, and we can run the mic over to you. So, there's a question over there.
Yeah. I have a loud voice, so I can be time efficient. Okay.
Wonderful presentation, excellent company. I'm always happy to look out of the airplane window and see your engines on the airplane.
Me too. Makes me feel safe.
So you probably know, GE just sold its water business.
Yep.
They sold it to Suez for 3.3 billion euros. You spent about $2 billion acquiring that water business, 2 of them excellent Canadian companies, one of them Xenon. Are you able to inform us strategically or tactically what's behind GE exiting the water business at a time when it's growing at about 12% a year?
You know, it's a great question, and I think we've been pretty public about the disposition of the water business. As you know, we are partnering with the Baker Hughes organization, and within that transaction, there is some, overlay of the portfolio. And so I think for regulatory purposes, that was one of the reasons. So we're not completely exiting, but it'll be a little bit different. It'll be very oil and gas focused, our future water initiatives. Yep. She's gonna need roller skates.
Hi, Deb. My name is Heather, and I work with Mike at Vancity in impact investing. As a former employee of GE Capital, I'm familiar with Ecomagination, and I'm wondering if you're able to touch on the effect that Ecomagination has had on GE's own fleet.
Sure, absolutely. So That's very near and dear to my heart. So I don't know if you have read my bio, but before I became the Ecomagination leader, I was also the global alternative fuel leader for the company. And we had a big initiative that kicked off back in 2010, where we were transitioning GE's corporate fleet, our sales and our services fleet, into alternative fuels. And we had about 5,000 plug-in hybrid electric vehicles on the road. And we had about 2,500 Chevy Volts and about 2,500 Ford C-Maxes at that time. And so we were really excited. We were pioneering. I have to tell you, it was a very nervous time. The technology, we trusted the automotives, but we were taking a bit of a leap of faith. And we're very proud of what we were able to do. We were leading the way on the fleet side, but I think just the comfort allowed even more consumers, to be engaged with plug-in hybrid electrics. And it was funny. Just a really quick story. When our reps first, received the cars, they were like rock stars. People would be all around their cars. They had more to talk about with their customers than ever before. So it was really quite interesting what new technology can drive. Very, very interesting. But we're really proud of what we did in the very, very early days. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Alicia Main from Simon Fraser University. I loved your presentation.
Thank you.
You spoke about some of the open innovation challenges that GE had done. And I wonder if you could comment on any programs you might have had with any universities around the world in feeding that open innovation and in being able to scan for radical technologies that could meet some of your goals.
Yeah. Nope, it's a great question. And we work with universities within Ecomagination, within our GE Digital team, within our ventures team as well. So from the Ecomagination perspective, I shared a little bit just our work last year on a hackathon with the California State University students. But we also, in our innovation challenges, have had some great university participation in response. And one of them was in our Middle East challenge that we did with Saudi Aramco. We had some great university participation. They won some money, some seed money, to take their technology a little bit further, which is the whole intention. And then what happens is, our ventures team might come in and make an investment in that process. And so that ecosystem works very, very well in hackathons as well as open innovation challenges.
Hi, great presentation.
Thank you.
I'm John Thompson with Petroscience Consultants here in Vancouver, and I'm also part-time professor at Cornell University, close to some of your facilities. So my question is, as GE looks out into the future and is designing new technologies and looking at new approaches to do things, particularly in the renewable space, do you worry about, do you have concerns about, and to what extent do you follow through on that, about sourcing the materials, particularly the specialty metals kind of materials that you're going to need going forward in the future? And do you look to, at some point, responsible sourcing of those kinds of materials?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on all the sourcing of materials, but we do have people within our sustainability team that I could definitely put you in touch with. I can just share with you just some quick examples when you think about, how we're going to get to 3-cent wind and all of that. There's some technology that we're transferring from our medical business and now putting it in the renewable business, that from our MRI into a wind turbine, which is very interesting technology, and reduces helium by like 90%. And so we're constantly looking at ways to reduce and save natural resources in the innovation process as well. How we source all of that, I probably need you to speak to another GE expert, but I know we have a good answer. Yes, please do.
We could probably ask Deb a lot of questions. Are you going to be available for
I will
people
be
if
here
they
for a
have
while,
questions?
yep.
Okay, that's great. So one more round of applause, please, for Deb.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me here. General Fusion is developing the technology for the world's most powerful energy source, fusion. with 65 employees, over 100 million invested in R&D and 130 patents, we're now heading for a major prototype, which will be a very significant milestone in our company's history. What we do is groundbreaking, it's exciting, but it's also really, really difficult to do. And it's one of those things that you really can't do just on your own. We've been fortunate to have the support of a very visionary group of investors that's been backing the company for all these years. But to be honest with you, even over and above of that, it is very important to talk about the joint work and collaborations that we have going with people in the industry and even parallel industries, because without that, you can't tackle challenges like what we're dealing with. And it's this collaboration that I really wanted to talk about today. Oops, the other way. There you go. There are many terms that people use to talk about collaborations. Clusters is the term that is kind of hot on the agenda these days, and so maybe we use that. Ultimately, they all lead to the same things. In established industries, working together and pooling the resources can lead to tactical, operational, competitive advantages. Whether it is about building a bigger sales channel in retail, developing deeper pools of talent and expertise in technology industries, or developing a more robust supply chain in manufacturing, companies in established industries have a lot to benefit from pooling their resources and working together. Now, in emerging industries, in particular advanced technology space, working together is more than just a nice to have. Sometimes it can be absolutely vital. Now, the reality is that industries, as we all know, don't exist in vacuum. An industry is based and sits on top of this intricately intertwined and complicated matrix of relationships between customers, suppliers, materials, engineering solutions, regulators, you name it. And all of these are kind of feeding into the ecosystem that you operate in. So within an established ecosystem, you can kind of group together and get better and more efficient in navigating it. Now, well, what do you do when you don't have an ecosystem because you're just doing something absolutely new and none of it actually exists? So the real question is, well, where do you start? And that's a challenge. That's a challenge and a half, to be honest with you. So I don't think there is a one formula that necessarily fits every single situation, but there are some fundamental blocks that are out there and that I think are very important for this type of collaboration to be successful. The part that I kind of wanted to start with is the joint work with academic research and research institutions such as universities. The reality is that by very definition of it, advanced technology pushes the boundaries of what we know. As it pushes these boundaries, it raises more questions than we have answers, like frankly a lot more questions than we have answers, and answering them in close relationship with universities and academic institutions can be both capital and time efficient, can be a lot more capital and time efficient than doing it as a standalone private company. Now, over and above of that, and probably most importantly, universities are a fantastic platform for seeding and creating this pool of knowledge and expertise that the industry has to feed on, and it can't exist without its expertise. And that ultimately, what we're talking about here is kind of a spawning a new industry out of a technology. So working with academic research is absolutely fundamental for success. The second part is working with competitors. Ultimately, competition is good. It's not a bad thing. You never want to be an industry of one. It's neither healthy nor financeable, to be honest with you, in the long term. And the fact of the matter is there is more than one way to solve the problem. When you look at the types of things that happen in advanced technologies, yes, of course, everyone thinks that their solution is the best and there is the secret sauce, but there's a lot to be gained in companies even competing, but yet working together to solve some common challenges. And they could be technical in nature, or they could be, things like, getting together and kind of creating a one voice when speaking to a regulator or a government. So, to use general fusion as an example, we work with companies in advanced nuclear space. We work with companies that compete and have alternative designs to the fusion systems. And yes, we guard our IP very carefully, but there's a lot of things that we can and should do together that frankly, move everybody forward because, high tide does lift a lot of boats. The third part is building bridges with parallel industries, and this is where, I can almost go and steal probably at least half the slides from the GE Ecomagination presentation where, yes, how do you go and take something from the, supersonic jet world and put it into, a completely different application? Or how does MRI machine all of a sudden design a new windmill? Well, the fact is, if you have a problem, chances are somebody else had the same problem and they thought of a solution, maybe not in the context and the set of circumstances that we're dealing with, but there's a lot of things out there. And this, again, the problems could be technical, the problems could be completely business related. We spend quite a bit of time with companies like D-Wave or Corvus for that matter, and there's a lot that we learn from the experiences that they have in their industries. In fact, this particular one with Corvus, the things we learned about the marine propulsion space is an eye-opening experience, and will probably help us in a lot of different ways, right? So you just never know what comes out of this relationship. So those parallel bridges are very, very important. Now, all of this is great and all of this is critical. When we're coming from a smaller private company standpoint, when you're coming from this sort of a greenfield, hugely big and revolutionary idea, it does take a catalyst. And this catalyst can come from many different directions, but the reality is, if you take that acorn and plant it in the fertile soil, it still may not grow into a beautiful tree unless it gets just the right amount of sunlight and water from this outside source. The catalyst could be a government, it could be a parallel industry, it could be a visionary investor and technology leader with a lot of resources and imagination and vision, but something does need to happen from the outside to help to get the process going. When we think of solar, we look at the industry today, and a lot of us would think of the German feed-in tariff that really kind of kicked off the development, but let's not forget, on the technical side, the impact that the aerospace sector had on the development of this technology when we needed a power source for the satellites and we knew we can't track diesel to the orbit. I mean, that was always, and that's what happened. When you look at the internal combustion engine, the way it is today, the oil industry was pivotal to the rise of that space. And if we want to talk about visionaries, well, Elon Musk pretty much single-handedly put the electric car industry on the map, and it probably wouldn't have happened without his drive. But it takes those types of events to sort of complete what is otherwise required conditions and make them sufficient and actually turn technology into an industry. Now, when I look at BC, I think we have a lot of really good pieces in place. We have fantastic universities and technical schools, and this is by far not a complete list of names on this slide and here. And as General Fusion, we had a lot of good experience in working with all of them. We're within a very diversified technology ecosystem that is growing, so that creates multiple opportunities for this kind of a cross-pollination of different ideas. Well, and then, let's face it, it's a darn good place to live, so attracting people here really shouldn't be that much of a problem. A lot of people will very much enjoy living and working in BC. What we do need is we need more catalysts in this province, and frankly in Canada, to kind of put all of these things together and make it happen. And it is happening in a lot of different sectors. I think we need a lot more of that. It's good to hear government at different levels, provincial and federal, talking about this. It's good to hear people talking about this in this room and around this conference. But if we get this figured out, the sky is the limit. So I think that's all I have today.